Sure, let's do it. Let's make that
Yeah,
bet.
sure. With agreed upon, everything like
Yeah, of
that.
course.
Yeah, and
You
now,
would frame the responsibility objection in the way you usually do, and
and you can give a
you
link like to the source and a brief description of what a responsibility objection is, and you can link to papers about the responsibility objection. You can make sure they know what it is.
yeah, probably in a short manner because they won't be
Yeah.
reading a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. So, but you agree though that if it turns out that like you're wrong about this, then it turns out like pro-choicers by and large, including pro-choicers of the nature you've described, actually reject the responsibility objection. You agree it would be deceptive to describe me as pro-choice?
If I don't specify that all I mean by pro-choice is that you support most abortions, then yes.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Okay, good. Then we're in agreement because I didn't. It's not clear that you were when you called me pro-choice. That it was synonymous when you called me mostly pro-choice, because then it would just be a redundancy. Because then, what's the distinction between pro-choice and mostly pro-choice?
Same thing to me.
Okay, but then, okay. So
I mean, mostly pro-choice falls under the category of pro-choice. That's how I see it. That's
okay.
how I saw it.
Okay. So if all you mean by pro-choice is you just happen to sign off on the legality on the current majority of abortions, even if the way you get there are just radically different. I mean, let me just ask you this. I'm so curious.
Mhm.
Let's say someone says all abortions should be legal, 100% of them. Would you consider this person pro-choice?
All abortions should be legal? Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay. And if you ask them why, like, what's your reason for all abortions being legal? They say, well, I just believe that abortions cause women trauma, and I just want women to experience trauma. Right. So they said that. I enjoy like knowing that women are suffering. And I believe that when a woman gets an abortion, she suffers a whole bunch of psychological problems and pain. And the reason I want these abortions to be legal is because I'm a misogynist, and
Mhm.
I really just get off on women experiencing torture and pain, and that's really the only reason. In fact, I don't. I do believe fetuses are sentient, and I do believe there's a responsibility objection. It's just overridden by my misogynistic values.
Yeah, I see what you mean. And yeah, to be honest, I would call them pro-choice because
Mm.
they want all abortion to be legal.
But you see how it would be very deceptive to just without context say, "Hey, he's a pro-choice person."
Yeah, but I wouldn't do that to you.
Well, I think
I
you have.
just said that I would consider you to be pro-choice.
I
I
think you
literally
have
said I
done.
would describe you as pro-sentience.
Wait, but you said, wait, but you have done that to me. You have called me pro-choice without context. Um,
When?
when you said you're pro-choice because you support the majority of abortions.
But that is the context. I said the reason why I'm calling you pro-choice is because you support the majority of them.
Oh, but you didn't say the only thing you mean is supporting the majority of them. You didn't say by pro-choice all I mean, irrespective of all the values that gone into it, is that I support the majority of abortions.
Well, that's all. That's all I ever said.
I know. Wait.
I didn't say you're
You said
pro-choice
that
for any other
after. I
reason.
don't understand you said that after. I know it's all you said, but that's the problem. The problem is that's all you said. And you didn't say by pro-choice all I mean is some like contingency, some data contingency that happens to fit this like 51% or greater, that you didn't say that. So yeah, if someone were to do the same thing with this person, with the misogynist person, who thinks fetuses are like incredibly valuable, and they do have the right to life, and they do, and the mother is responsible for them. They just want all abortions to be legal because they just get off on women going through the torture process that they believe is happening, mistakenly or not, just because they like to see women suffer.
I would say the same thing. I'd say they're
No, I know you'd say
pro-choice.
that. I
You
know
can
you'd say
support
the
all
same thing. You don't
abortions.
need to repeat. You don't need to repeat it. I know you'd say the
Okay.
same thing. My issue is that if you were to just say, "Hey, this person supports most abortions. He's a pro-choice person," while knowing all of that, I think that would be deceptive. I think that would be deceptive by omission.
I agree, but I didn't do that.
But you did.
I did not. I explained exactly why I think you're pro-choice, and in the same conversation, I said that I would still describe you as pro-sentience
Wait, but
because it's a
after
more accurate
wait,
descriptor.
you did that after you clarified that all you meant by pro-choice was just that, and it didn't mean anything more. But like in the screenshot, you know, that would be so. It
I
says
mean, sure, if you clip my message out of context, you can spin anything you want.
it
But
seems
if
you're
you
not.
expand the screenshot just a little bit, you'll see exactly what I mean.
I can expand it right now. It's not a problem.
Okay.
um, Here we can expand it right now. Um,
Now let me just take the screenshot I'm saying and post it. Here. If you
here's
just
what you
clip the first
responded to.
message out of context, then
No, it's a clipping here. Here it is. This is the context. Okay. So this is what you responded to.
or you can just also include the message right below it.
Yeah. This
Okay,
was what
perfect.
you responded to, right? Yep. So we all have the
Wait.
context.
No,
Yeah. This is
you can make the screenshot a little bit bigger by going a bit below it, right?
below it. You want below it too? Okay, no problem. Hold on.
Not two, just below it. Just the screenshot I sent. It's fine.
Oh, the screenshot you sent. Okay. Okay. Plenty of pregnancies are from failed contraceptive or precum, where the women didn't want sperm to get in, and plenty of abortions are before birth. Combined, this would make a majority of abortions. Yeah. So again, it's the same problem. So the problem is, yes, we are understanding that you're forming some belief that someone is pro-choice on the basis of the proportion of current contingent pregnancies that are aborted. We understand that's not a point of contention about how you're forming this belief process about someone who is pro-choice. Like I don't even dispute the heuristic. That might be a generally good heuristic to do to decide if someone's pro-choice or not. But what you haven't done is you haven't clarified by pro-choice that is all you mean. So there's an underdetermination still. The underdetermination is if by pro-choice do you just mean that percentage of support being 50% or greater or over 50%,
Okay,
or
so you're
if wait,
you're
let me just
worried that that's right.
yeah, or are you just doing this as an epistemic tool to track someone being pro-choice or not pro-choice, um, as a heuristic, which could be supported. You can draw support that I'm pro-choice by that. That's fine. You can apply the heuristic to me. It might fail, but from what you've said, there's no resolution to that underdetermination.
Okay, so all you're worried about is that somebody who might read this might think that not only are you pro-choice because of this, but you're also pro-choice because your values align with typical pro-choice ideologies.
Exactly. Like unless you like specify that it's merely by pro-choice, I merely just mean having a contingent, a support of the current proportion of pregnancies being legally terminable being having a value of 50% or greater. Like unless you specify
I
that,
feel like that's a big reach. I think nobody's gonna reach that far when they read this.
no. I think no. Wait. Unless you do that, here's the reach. The reach is that when you say someone's pro-choice, that there are certain values that people typically associate with that. That's not a reach.
When they see the exact reasoning for why I call them pro-choice, and they
No,
say
that
nothing else until a
no.
few messages later when I specify exactly what
Then
it
there's
meant.
the underdetermination that hasn't been resolved. So
Sorry,
yeah,
overdetermination.
and there's the underdetermination.
Oh,
Yeah, when you explaining your reasoning to conclude that someone's pro-choice, as you've stated it, gives an underdetermination. It's underdetermined whether you think that I am pro-choice in the way you've written it by that being all you mean, and there's some like an analytic equivalence relation, or if you're just using that as an epistemic heuristic.
That feels like something like that feels like me saying I have 4 fingers and it's accurate because I do have 4 fingers. I didn't say I don't have more. That's kind of what it sounds like.
No, it's not what it sounds like. It's actually a completely different sort of thing. It's not. I'm not saying that. The issue is that you've said, like, 50 instead of 60. At least 50 instead of. You should have said at least 50 instead, not 60. No, that's not what's happening here. What's happening here is that it's underdetermined what your view of pro-choice is based on what you've said. You just saying that I'm pro-choice because of this type of reasoning doesn't tell me that that's all you consider pro-choice to be. Like, for example, I can apply your same reasoning even though I have a very different view of what pro-choice is. So I can take the heuristic. I can say, oh, well, if we were to just classify people based on the proportion of abortions they support, the majority support are probably going to be pro-choice, the minority support are going to be pro-life, or somewhere around there. That might be a very accurate epistemic tool, and I can do that. I can do the same reasoning you've done. But notice how my view of what pro-choice is still fundamentally different than yours. Okay? That's why there's an underdetermination.
Okay.
Yeah. And so you have done that to me.
I don't think so. No. I think it's pretty obvious to everybody reading.
Okay, well,
I don't mean you're.
Okay, well, there is an underdetermination. You agree that there's an underdetermination.
In pure logic sense, yes, but most normal people reading don't interpret
Okay, well,
it
that's an empirical claim I'd like you to substantiate.
I cannot. It's from my experience.
Okay, well, from my experience, goes the other way. So we're at a standstill there. So anyway, in any case, what I would just like you to do is, if you do insist on describing me as pro-choice, just be very, very clear that by pro-choice, all but I would shift. So just to be clear on your view, if tomorrow all abortions performed were at 12 weeks, I would be pro-life tomorrow.
If like they continue being from tomorrow onwards,
Yeah. So you have this sort of view where it's like, it's not about my values. It's just about my support of, like, what the outcome of my support of the current contingent proportion of pregnancies being terminable.
Yeah, I think
right.
that terms pro-life and pro-choice mean just like
well, that's
the legality, but you can have other words that describe your moral values.
Well, we've gone through this already. Like, we've gone through. I think a lot of people associate at very minimum certain values on the terms pro-life and pro-choice. We've gone through this, like pro-life, life is sacred, pro-choice, my body, my choice. We know this conveys a value. You're free to have a different view or a different definition. That's fine, but that's why I'm just asking you to be very clear. That's all.
Yeah, sure, I agree. I'll be clear that you mean pro-sentience every time I call you pro-choice, if I do at all.
Yeah, pro-sentience, pro-responsibility. But I know just to be clear, what I'm asking you to do is to be clear about what you mean by pro-choice, because I don't suspect that the sort of thing you mean by pro-choice is the sort of thing that, if you were to ask the average person what pro-choice means, that they would sign off on.
Yeah, so let's make those polls.
You're free to put together whatever poll you want. I don't have the time to draft them. You can send them to me, and I can give you suggested addendums or whatnot, and then we can do that. That's fine.
Sure. You want to bet? Money on it?
It depends on how you word it. I mean, if you were to word it, I think if you word it appropriately, the bet I'm definitely willing to take is that the pro-choice individuals, the majority of pro-choice individuals who don't consider fetuses people, would not sign off an agreement on the responsibility objection. Like, I'm willing to bet on that. Sure.
You're willing to bet that the majority of people who are pro-choice because they don't think fetuses are persons are
Not going to agree with the responsibility objection.
okay.
Like, if you ask them, do you agree with the responsibility objection? The majority, I don't think. If you said
Yeah,
yes,
I
no.
think most of them, if you outline it like the way you usually do, I think most of them would agree with you. Yeah,
Okay, so we do. Okay, so yeah, I'd be willing to bet. I'll bet you $100 on that.
sure.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and we could run it by like pollsters. We could run it by some statisticians to make sure it's like worded appropriately and whatnot. But yeah, yeah, it would be. It would be. I would be very surprised. Like that has, and the reason is just like that. That has like always, to my knowledge, been like a staunchly pro-life argument that like pro-choicers like who of all sorts of varieties just that I've ever seen just abhor. But yeah,
It's only discussions of these types. This
no,
responsibility objection
yeah, to
comes
be
up
clear,
in is when it's already
why I
brought
said of
up,
all
right?
types. Why I said of all types I've met, right? So to make sure that includes the type you're talking about, right? Yeah. Okay. So you didn't need to clarify that. I already clarified that. Okay. Cool. Well, I think that's basically it.
I have a comment.
Yeah. What's up?
I kind of find it funny that like these pro-lifers, like when it comes to like an individual being raped, they'll resort into these abortion pills in early stage, but when uh, they don't mention, I don't know how to word it
You
exactly.
mean
I'm
the
sorry if it
morning?
doesn't.
Wait. Do you mean the morning after pill?
I believe so.
What's
I'm
what's
sorry I'm
weird?
not wording it correctly.
Wait. What's weird about the morning after pill?
No, that pro-lifers would be in favor of that. Like when it
Why
comes,
would that be weird?
Wouldn't it be in favor? Yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry, it probably doesn't make sense. It
I
makes more sense in my
I
head.
agree. I actually agree. It's incidentally, contingently, I agree. It's weird because most pro-lifers think that accomplishes an abortion, which is not true. It doesn't actually accomplish an abortion.
Yeah.
Like morning after pills don't work by aborting or even preventing implantation. By the way, the other thing that they used to think it works by preventing implantation, actually, there's data showing that's not even true. It just prevents ovulation, and if ovulation already happened, then the morning after pill is likely just not to work.
Can you send a link that it doesn't?
It's already it's in the Discord.
Oh,
I think I'll take a look at it. Thanks.
All down for the channels. That's why I have that's why this Discord is called Study Archives, by the way, because we have a collection of all of these lovely empirical things and studies that have shown them. Right? You just have to look for them.
can I ask you about your pro-sentience stance?
Sure.
So is sentience a necessary and a sufficient condition for moral worth? Yes.
Not necessarily. No.
Is it one but not the other, or which one?
It's a necessary condition.
Okay, so how do you deal with the usual coma problem?
What do you mean?
Person is in a coma. He's not sentient right now. We can't kill him. Why?
Oh, because I don't. Oh. Oh, I see what you're saying. You mean current sentience? Is that what you mean? Oh, if you're being current sentience, if you're going to specify from sentience to current sentience, then that's neither a necessary nor sufficient condition for moral worth, on my view.
What kind of sentience is a necessary condition?
Sentience. It's the potential. My view could be broadly summed up as the potential for sentience, or non-trivial potential for sentience for all beings that have at one point reached sentience prior.
Okay, and why is it necessary to have at one point reached sentience prior?
That's just something that captures my values.
No, I don't think it does, because if we applied this to a dead person, you wouldn't think they're valuable and would have the same right to life.
So no, they also wouldn't have the potential for sentience.
I'm saying
no. What you just did, you pivoted there. So I isolated the variable, and so the variable wouldn't matter then.
It was
so what you actually mean? Hold on, no. You're not going to talk over me. Hold on. So what you just did there? Hold on, you're pivoting.
So actually, I will talk over you, and it's my server. If you want to follow the norms of the server, and if you misrepresented me, I will talk over you. So it's my house. Take off your dirty shoes or get the fuck out. So the reason, to be clear, the reason I'm talking over you is you've misrepresented me. My view is a conjunction, right? You can't isolate the variable. If you isolate the variable, you're just not talking about my view. If I have variable is x in conjunction with y, if you say, oh, well, that doesn't work because look at y in and of itself. Well, that's just not my view. It's a conjunction of potential for sentience in conjunction with having previously reached sentience. And now I'll unmute you.
Okay, so a newborn baby, let's say it sleeps through the whole pregnancy and childbirth. It has never been conscious, but you can wake it up any moment now. So it's okay to kill that. You bite the bullet.
Yeah, yeah. It would be like a golem, like a rock that hasn't been like it would be no different to me than if there was like this rock construct that was about to be sentient by the wave of the magic wand by a magician, but like we didn't wave the wand yet. Okay, so it's a bunch of rocks. Like, yeah, it's a bunch of cells that have never reached the point. It's never been a person.
I see.
Yeah.
And I think most people would see that as a reductio. I think that's pretty unintuitive.
Well, then you'd have to wait. But then wait. If most people see that as a reductio, with my deflation of the reductio is what I'm interested in, and you can, because it's what's doing a lot of work there is just. Well, first of all, I'm not even interested if most people consider it a reductio. I'd be interested if most people who are like of a pro-sentience view consider it a reductio, because, like most people, I'm not really concerned about most people's views on this matter. But like, I think that most people who value,
if they already share your pro-sentience view, then they probably wouldn't see this as a major reductio anyway, right?
Yeah.
That's
opposing
it.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, but to be clear, I'm also not granting the empirical claim. I'd like to be convinced of that.
Okay, that's just the way. Like, okay, I'll just say that personally, I feel.
No, I know. Your suspicion. Oh, yeah, your suspicion. That's fine. Yeah, I don't. I'm not. I don't know about whether they would or not. I don't really care either way, but I don't know. But yeah, I mean, that is my view. Like, my view is just like if you are about to animate a bunch of rocks into sentient life. The second before you do that, I wouldn't care if, at least intrinsically, if you blow up the rocks. Now, I might care about like certain things that extrinsic value, like the things that could have done for society or whatever, but intrinsically, no. Do you have any other questions?
What about sentience with no ability to feel pain or pleasure?
Yeah, that's another reason why sentience is in and of itself per se is not a sufficient criteria. And I don't, so it's I would give the precautionary principle, in practice, but like if we dialed in, like, the type of sentience we're talking about is just like, just experiencing what it's like for green, to see green, with no like favorable or unfavorable attitude, with no like thing, nothing, in fact, no preferences at all, and nothing, like no goals, no desires, just the sentience experience is just consciously experiencing green forever. Would I care if I shut that up? I don't really think I would care that much about that. I certainly would care more, so maybe I don't have a fully ironed view, but I certainly would care a lot more if they had preferences, or if they could, at least even without preferences, experience certain favorable or unfavorable thoughts or emotions or experiences at all.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Question. Going back to the rock example you gave. Let's say there's a person, and then he's turned into a rock. And if we again use the ray gun machine, whatever it is, to turn him back into a human, he won't remember his past life. He'll be a totally new person, right?
Oh, he won't. Okay, so that's going to depend on whether that's going to depend on one's view of personal identity. So once you added that, until you added that part, I was going to say that, it would be a value to, it would be a value to ray the rock back into life, because that's offensive for all beings who have at one point experienced sentience. But what you're doing now is you're saying, oh, he wouldn't have remembered his previous experiences. Well, then that's going to call into question. The issue here is that's going to call into question whether it's the same being. Because remember, like my view hasn't changed. It's just for all beings that have previously experienced sentience, it's just going to be an open question of personal identity about whether that is the being that previously experienced sentience. And you can take either view on that. I'm not really wedded to like a view. I've done this. Like, you're not the first person to try this on me, by the way. Like, someone's tried to make a more in-depth personal identity objection to my views on abortion, believe it or not. And I generated an overdetermination criteria for personal identity just to like show that the view's still coherent. But yeah, I'm not really wedded like to a given view on personal identity. So you can go either way on that. Depending on but that's the point, is that's not really going to depend on your views on your values on sentience or personhood or whatnot. That's just going to depend on your views about personal identity, about whether it's the same person.
But I think it's sort of baked in there, because your necessary criterion is that the being was conscious or was sentient in the past. But what is the being? What?
No. So I've given an overdetermination criteria before. I can probably find the video where I've done that. So yes, I mean, like, the overdetermination criteria is, so yes, some sort of psychological continuity, even if there are discontinuities in it. If there is discontinuities, at least there's some sort of causal connection between the sort of mental or brain state between one discontinuity and the other end of it. I can revisit all of the overdetermination criteria I've made, but like, I did give a case where it's like, oh, well, if you like add on all of these things, then it's overdetermined that the being is the same being, and that I value it. Now you can say, well, what about like non-overdetermined cases? Like, if you like take one out, and I might just be agnostic, and that's fine. I'm allowed to be agnostic. That's the point. The point is just
agnostic there. I would ask, why are you not agnostic in the case of an unsentient fetus?
In the case of an unsentient, because the point of the agnosticism isn't about whether there's sentience or not. The point of agnosticism is about whether there is a being, the being is the same being or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like, you're just giving me a case where I'm not sure if the being is the same being, right?
But
that's
if
all
the
you're
being
doing.
is not, if it turns out that the being is not the same being,
yeah,
then it doesn't meet your criteria for.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's why I would be. That's right.
So you'd also have to be agnostic about moral worth if you're agnostic about personal identity.
Wait, no, like, no. I'm not agnostic about the conditions of moral worth. I might be agnostic about moral worth in situations where I am agnostic about personal identity. That's true, but that doesn't mean I'm agnostic about the conditions for moral worth. Look, the only issue here is just that you're just saying that there are certain examples where it's unclear if my criteria are met. That's all, and I can grant you that. I'm like, yeah, in the world there might be certain examples where it's not overdetermined that my criteria are met. So.
Okay, I think I sort of get it, but it's hard for me in a vocal conversation. One more question.
Well, it was a lot harder for you in text, so I'm glad you're taking it here.
It's a lot easier for me in text.
Nightmare in text. Okay, go.
Yeah. So one more question. Mm-hmm. You say about the cutoff for abortion. You have like what did you call it? You have like a just in case line. I want to draw the line at 7 weeks. Oh, it's a precautionary principle.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, like, what do you think is approximately the chance that a fetus is actually sentient at 7 weeks? Or 8 weeks, whatever.
At 8 weeks. Oh, I don't know. I probably it's. I wouldn't be surprised either way. Probably like 50-50.
50-50 at 8 weeks. Okay. So then I would ask. So if you were also 50-50 on whether a non-sentient fetus deserves moral worth, would you then have to be pro-life from conception?
If I was, I'm sorry, what's the question? If I was
So 50%, a 50% risk that a fetus is sentient is enough for you to ban abortion at 8 weeks, right?
Well, no, it's not enough for me to ban abortion. There's a whole bunch of other things that went into it.
Yeah, provided that the responsibility objection is provided the other exceptions.
Then what?
50% risk is enough.
Wait, it should be clear about what it's enough for. It's enough just to provide a precautionary principle. It's like for all intents, in other words, for all intents and purposes, we're treating this as a sentient being.
Right.
Yeah.
So wouldn't the same apply to like a moral dispute? For example, if you're 50-50, I know you're not, but in case you were 50-50 on whether a non-sentient fetus deserves moral worth, wouldn't you then make this?
No, I'm not 50. A non-sentient, never sentient. I
know you're not. I'm saying if that burden of proof was reached, would that be enough for you to ban abortion?
Oh, in other words, if there was like new data and that that pushed me back and being like, hey, actually I'm 50-50 on a zygote or something. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, would that be enough for you to ban abortion at conception?
If it was like the same sort of non-trivial sentience that I'm getting, because remember the 50-50 is like the non-trivial sentience. But yeah, then yeah, I would push my view back further. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Thanks.
Okay, I do hope you understand the stuff about the personal identity, because it's not like that. It's a very uncommon objection, but it comes up once in a few years.
I do not. I must admit.
Okay, because like the point is just that the only thing that you've objected to, the only thing that you've done with that is you've generated a case in which I'm uncertain. I'm uncertain if the being is the same being. I'm uncertain because of views of personal identity. That doesn't mean they're all cases I'm uncertain, because I can give you overdetermination criteria. It's just that you may be able to provide me with non-overdetermined cases where it's like, okay, well, I'm not sure if this is the same being or not, so then I'm not sure about my answer. But that's fine. Just like, we can say, well, that we're uncertain about all sorts of things if it's not overdetermined.
I'm probably not going to try to make this argument because I get confused very quickly. I'll have to write it down for myself.
Okay, well, if you need any help, you can reach out, and I'd be happy. I think
yeah, I wanted to ask about another stance as well. Do you have any? I've been looking at the stance that a fetus is a person when his brain first starts to grow.
Brain first starts to grow. So like the neural plate.
Which happens at like 2 to 3 weeks after conception.
Yeah,
because that's when the brain parts first have the potential for consciousness.
Yeah, what about it?
Are there any reductios for it, or?
Well, it just seems. I mean, I don't think there's reductio for it, in the sense that if it is conscious, then it would be worthy of value. I just don't think that. I just don't think that a notochord or a neural tube is something that would be conscious. And as far as reductios, there may be some. I mean, there are certain tumors that have that are of neural origin, and are not that different from the primitive notochord that the brain develops from it at that same time frame. There are notochord tumors. So if you have the same sort of structure from a tumor,
but those tumors won't grow into a conscious being.
Wait, no, but they're saying that the structure is conscious. They're saying the notochord is conscious.
Oh, okay. Then I don't know about that.
Yeah. Well, no, but the point is that you're saying the being is conscious at the point in which
the
brain forms. 2 to 3 weeks.
I'm not. I'm saying for moral worth.
I see. So you're saying for moral worth, it's just like the brain in and of itself.
Yeah, if a position that says a person gets moral worth when his brain first starts to grow, because that's when his brain parts first have the potential to produce consciousness.
Oh, okay. So then we would just say let's just say we let's. Oh, wait. When that's okay, that's potential for something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, well, but wait a minute. Hold on. Then wait. So if the brain is of worth because it's the potential for consciousness, then it's not clear why there are other things that are not. It's unclear why we need to be talking about brains if what's doing all the work is potential for consciousness. Why are we just not talking about a sperm and an egg in a petri dish?
Well, that would be very unintuitive if we said that a sperm.
Well, but the point is that meets the same criteria. Like if your criteria is just potential for consciousness.
Well, it's not. It's not. It's the brain's potential to produce consciousness, and the rationale would be something like this. We think a person loses moral worth when when he becomes brain dead, when his brain no longer has the potential for consciousness. So it makes sense that they gain moral worth when the brain parts first have that potential.
Yeah. No, I think, and the difference is just that I think we don't value it until they reach it. I don't think we just value things intrinsically without having them reach it at all. So, if someone says, well, it could produce consciousness. I mean, it's like, technically you could just have you can have a notochord. And by the way, there may be certain tumors that do have the potential to produce consciousness, by the way. It's not clear that they don't. Maybe
if those tumors eventually produce consciousness, you would have to value that too.
Well, not. I mean, I wouldn't. They would have to value that too if they could potentially produce consciousness. I wouldn't. I would only value it if they did produce consciousness. They would have to value that, right? So what they would have to
value the tumor if it did produce consciousness.
Yeah, not if it had the potential. So what the difference between me and them is that I would if you had a neural tumor with the potential for consciousness that wasn't reached, the difference is I would say you're allowed to not value that. You're allowed to treat it. You're allowed to cut it out. You're allowed to in the case like that. Whereas they would say no, like you actually have to take consideration and like deliberate over cutting out your neural tumor. Whereas I wouldn't. So that would be a difference. And I suspect most people would fall in line, if they had to choose between one of the two views, they would favor my view.
Sorry, I'm just not sure about the science of this whole tumor thing. Is a tumor something that you have in your head and you can cut it out while you're still conscious? Or?
Yeah. I'm giving you an example. Like, I'm giving you an example of reductio. The example is just... the example is like, let's say you have a neural tumor that has not reached consciousness, but has the potential to. Now, the difference between my view and their view is, on my view, it's not even a question of whether you can cut it out or destroy it. There's no deliberation. Because it's valueless. It doesn't have intrinsic value because it hasn't reached consciousness at any point. On their view, that's not true. On their view, there is deliberation. We do have to have a discussion.
Can't you cut a tumor out and still be conscious?
No, the tumor dies when you cut it out.
The tumor dies, but you're still conscious, right?
Yeah, but the tumor could have been conscious. And now you've taken that potential away.
Like the tumor itself, like a separate consciousness from you?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so you would say that it's wrong to cut this tumor out when this tumor reaches consciousness.
They might say it. I wouldn't say that. So on the view,
if it already reaches consciousness.
Yeah, if it already reached consciousness, there would be some deliberation. There would be deliberation. I probably still would, of course, say that even after deliberation, we would still, excise it. Okay, but the point, that's not a difference. But that's not a difference between that's not a difference between the two views presented here. The difference between the two views presented here, which is a reductio of one and not the other, is that if you have a case where there was never a tumor consciousness, but there is a potential, on my view, there would be no deliberation. Because there's no...
If it was... Yeah, so if it was to be expected within the natural capacities of it...
I'm serving you. You're interjecting in conversations that are not meant to be for you. So, this is the third time you've done it, so you can just be server muted. I don't know why you do that. It's, incredibly rude. Okay, so the difference between my view and their view is the situation where the tumor has never been conscious, but has the potential to. On my view, there's no deliberation. because it's valueless intrinsically. Just cut it out. On their view, there is deliberation. Now, they may still decide to cut it out, right? They may decide that the value of the person overrides the value of the potential for the tumor sentience. But there would be deliberation there. They would have to weigh those values against each other. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, sort of. It feels very like a very weak reductio, but I guess it is.
Well, imagine people... Can you imagine if you had a neural tumor and they say, hey, the neural tumor has never been conscious and is not conscious, but may potentially be conscious. And the patient's just like, okay, can we get rid of this fucking tumor, please? Like, I don't want to have cancer. And then the doctor says, well, we can, but we really need to think about the value of this tumor. Like,
but cancer kind of changes the landscape a bit.
Well, right? Some tumors are okay. I mean, it's true. Yeah, but the point is just. Yeah, but I think the work there is just because, I mean, well, you can do it with tumor, you can do it from cancer. So
I mean, you'd be in favor of having an abortion if it meant to save the life of the mother, so we'd be in favor of removing the tumor if it meant
no, of course. The point is just that there's deliberate. The reductio is not that what the outcome is. The reductio is that there's even deliberation. Okay,
the reductio is that it would make you think a bit. Okay.
Yeah, the reductio is like, why are we even talking about this? It's like a fucking cancer. Cut it out.
Okay, right. Yeah. So the difference is that you have only one reductio when we're talking about a tumor, and I have two reductios when we talk about a tumor.
Wait, what? I've offered one. I'm sure there are plenty of others.
I mean, you're separating the two. One in which the tumor is already conscious, and one in which the tumor.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Then it would be one reductio versus two reductios. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm sure there's other things you can come up with. I just came up with this on the fly. But yeah.
Okay. Thanks for the talk. I have to go.
All right. Take care.
Avi, can I ask you a couple questions regarding your conversation with Destiny and Vegan Games?
Yeah, which?
Regarding the people seed analogy.
Oh my god, we just spoke about this.
Oh, sorry.
We just spoke like, what about it?
I was wondering why you thought that scenario was so different than like kidnapping somebody and throwing them into the house. Like, if you know there's a very, very high probability that this seed is going to come through the window if you leave your window open, or if you don't like put the proper screen in place.
Well, the difference in the people, like my view on the people seed scenario is just that the same view as violinist. It works in cases of rape, it doesn't work in cases of non-rape. The people seed scenario is just the fundamental difference is whether there is consent for the seed to enter the house or not. In the case of pregnancies, assuming anyone knows basic biology, there is consent for sperm to enter the three-dimensional space of the vagina, whether that's in the form of pre-cum, even if we wrap it in a condom or not. There is consent for sperm to enter the vagina. That's not true in the case of people seeds. There's no consent for seeds to enter the house. And if there is consent for seeds to enter the house, I would give the same view. Like, so for example, if there was an agent that was shooting seed, like a seed shooter gun, and then the person said, hey, I give you consent to insert your seed shooter gun into my window, but just be careful, I don't consent to pregnancy, I don't consent to like the seed taking root, and then lo and behold, the seed shooter gun like misfires or whatever, didn't have a good enough pullout game with the seed shooter gun. Yeah, it gives all the same view. Like, once you dial all those in, it becomes like a whole lot less of a, like, there's no teeth to that reductio of that analogy anymore.
If the probability gets high enough, would you not still be held responsible, though? Like, say you knew 95% certain that the wind was going to blow the seed in.
Yes, sure, but the point is you have to dial all of those things in. You have to dial in, like, okay, well, there is consent for the seed to be in the house. Like, it's not just the probability. It's just like the overdetermination criteria also involves consent to the proximal cause.
I'm saying, say you don't consent to the seed coming in the house, but you know that it's going to.
Wait, but then that wouldn't meet my overdetermination criteria.
But isn't there a lot of cases, actually, in reality, where you do hold people responsible for things that they don't consent to if they know like the outcome is going to be likely and damaging?
There are. I'm just not sure this is one of them. I don't know. Like underdetermined, you're giving me a case where it doesn't meet my overdetermination criteria, and so I could go either way on that. I'm not sure.
Well, I was just thinking of like the scenario, maybe you just say you don't consent, but the probability of the seed coming through the screen would be similar to you wearing a condom or something. And
No. It's not. The fundamental difference is the consent of the sperm being in the three-dimensional space. Like that's part of my overdetermination criteria. Like it's not like they're it's not like and if we were like if we were walking around and there was flying, we were in a world where there's just flying sperm swimming around in the air. I would encourage people to have like female condoms to protect themselves. Sure, if we were in a world where swimming sperm would just swim up the vagina randomly, but that's a very different scenario than someone saying, I consent for the sperm to be in my vagina. Please put a sperm shooter in my vagina. Just don't like let it implant, right? That's very different.
Well, could somebody maybe go a couple levels down and say they don't consent to the implantation, but they do consent to the sperm being there?
Yeah, that is the case I'm talking about. The case I'm talking about where the responsibility objection obtains, on my view, is just that, where they consent to the sperm being in the vagina, but they don't consent to the pregnancy. In that case, my view is that consent is not required for you to be responsible for that.
So how would that be very much different than the people seed scenario then?
It's different because the consent. No. The consent to the proximal cause is not there in the people seed scenario, where it is there in the case of pregnancy.
Okay. So yeah, I got you.
Yeah, well, the criteria is met in one, but not the other. That's all.
Yeah, I understand. Thanks.
I got something.
So.
Okay. It could be a common objection, but I haven't heard your response yet. So I'll just ask about the objection about when, in order to make like crops for food, you need to like kill a lot of, I don't know, rodents in the process or something. So how do you like justify eating vegetables and stuff, given that like
what reason do I have to care?
Well, presumably for a similar reason you care about not eating meat. It's animal welfare involved with that.
No, rights violation, dude. Wait, hold on. Why would you presume it's the same reason there?
Okay, so
like, do we need to like wait? Hold on. I mean, there's many differences. Like, one difference is that like the animals we're killing are herbivores, and they're not like engaging in predatory behavior and eating each other's babies up. Typically, they're not like hunting. They're not like, so I'm not agnostic on the issue of odd or even order predators. Another difference is that it doesn't seem like we need to like be slaughtering all these herbivorous animals in order to have like a society in place. Whereas we need to grow crops in order to have a society in place. I just have no idea why you would assume that my reasons for caring about killing rats for crops is going to be the same reasons as not wanting to breed cows into existence to kill them.
Okay. I grant there would be differences, obviously.
No, differences that turn on me caring.
Oh, I grant that as well, but
so why would you? Yeah, so like my response is, what reason do I have to care about that?
For animal welfare reasons.
Wait, hold on. What reason for animal welfare? Do you think like I have this view that like all actions promoting of animal welfare are like the action that ought to be taken?
If that's not your view, then
it's not my view. It's an insane view. Like, I think that's crazy. Of course, it's not my view.
Okay, so But there are a few differences that you listed between that and breeding animals. So one of them is when you kill animals for crops, there are differences between carnivores and herbivores. I didn't really understand that.
Well, I don't care about killing. I'm okay with killing out-order predators.
Okay, so
the first thing is I'm agnostic. So the one difference is I'm agnostic if it's even okay to kill them, even if it's not for crops. I'm agnostic if it's okay to kill them for food.
Yes, but I'm sure that many of the animals that are being killed would not be in that category.
Yeah, so we can talk. Actually, it's many, but it's not a lot. It's not a lot definitely not a lot in terms of high order sentience beings. You can appeal to rabbits or something, but that's going to be the vast minority. Most of them are just going to be. But anyway, yeah. Another difference is hey, we've established this as private as property, whether private or not, and it's property for the sake of keeping a given society of highly sentient beings alive.
Wait, I didn't get the first part. So what are we establishing as property?
That we've established. Land.
So, in other words, the farmland is private property, and therefore
the land. It doesn't have to be private property. It could be public property, but it's as long as it's the public agency that is taking care. It's the point is that it's we have this notion of property, and it's there to we've claimed whether whatever the property laws are, but the point is that there's a difference between this creatures encroaching on your land and eating your food that is keeping a society alive versus you just breeding a being into existence and killing it.
Yeah, but then essentially to debate that point, we would have to get to the roots of justification of private property or property generally.
No, we don't.
Well, because I might not agree with the idea that
wait, you don't need to agree. You're asking me. You don't need to agree. What are you trying to show here? Are you trying to show that we just have a different value, or are you trying to show that there's some sort of hypocrisy on my view? If the idea is to show that there's some sort of inconsistency or hypocrisy on my view, you don't need to agree. It doesn't matter whether you agree about my notion of private property or not.
Okay, I shouldn't have worded it like that.
Because typically when these arguments are thrown around, they're trying to show an inconsistency in some vegans' positions. They're aha, you don't like it when they kill cows, but you eat crops. Don't you know they need to kill rodents to do that? Gotcha, right? That's the context it comes up in.
That is the context I brought it up in.
Yeah, but that context is showing attempting to show an inconsistency. It's attempting to show an internal critique, not an external critique.
Okay, so what if we equalize the differences between the two contexts and say okay, in order to keep society running, we need to do factory farming or something like that.
No. Well, that would definitely not equalize the context. Here's what might equalize the context: saying okay, well, if there were these really little cows that you couldn't easily get out of the way, and if the cows were swarming and eating the crops and they couldn't be reasoned with, and they couldn't be moved easily, practically, and they would just plow down all the crops, and kill the fucking cows. Yes.
Okay, so how many different distinctions are you enumerating here? Is it the size, the fact that it's difficult, the convenience of getting them out of the way?
All the morally relevant ones.
How many would that be, or is it too many to enumerate?
It probably would be a lot. I don't know if it's too many to enumerate, but one thing would be their degree of sentience. Another thing would be their whether they could easily be moved out of the way. Could they be the practicality of no-kill options, the equalizing the cost on society, equalizing that we're not breeding them, but rather they're just encroaching on land, so we're not actually factory farming them. But yeah, if you go through those and equalize it, then yes, I would agree that you should kill the cows.
Okay. Can I like write down some of the differences?
It's a conjunction of all those differences, but yes, I don't know what you mean by break down.
I mean, I want to write down some of the differences.
Oh, you can write them. Yeah, you can write them down. But the
Okay.
point is, but just so you know, the point is that the view at that point, when I sign off on that, like, there's no inconsistency being shown. There's no hypocrisy being shown.
Well, if I can make an argument for why each of these is not something that you care about, that you should care about by your own values as much as you do.
No, that also wouldn't show hypocrisy or inconsistency.
It would show that you should have a different view. I didn't use the word hypocrisy, but.
Oh, I thought it was a hypocrisy. Yeah, you could try to make, but that's a different argument. So this is, well, the point is that the argument. Well, I thought we were in agreement about the context this was brought up, and it was showing inconsistency or hypocrisy, not that this was going to be an external critique about like you trying to motivate me to have different values.
Well, no, I did. Okay, I did. Maybe I misspoke there. I did say that this would be based on your existing values. That if I could find reasons within your existing values that would justify you having a different view. So if your view on this, like,
yeah, but now that's a conversation of you just saying like, hey, maybe I think I could probe your values and be like, your values aren't the things you're saying they are. Okay, that's fine. You can do that. Good luck. I don't think you're going to be successful, but go ahead.
Okay, I do need to take a second to like write down each of the things that you listed. So
I don't. Yeah, but
you don't have to wait for me. You can talk about something else. That's fine.
No. It's just like I have to go to bed. I have to wake up early. It's like I don't have like. You can come back another time. It's like.
Yeah, we don't have to continue talking about this.
Like,
You can do whatever you want.
The point is just that like. I'm just so skeptical of someone being like, "Oh, you're going to motivate me for me to like realize that the values I've like spoken about and espoused for like and reflected on for X amount of years or not." If you think you can do it, fine. But like, I suspect that's going to be what's going to take the time out of your day to come up with some argument like that. I don't think that writing it down, the things I've said, is going to be the time taker here.
Oh yeah, I was just justifying like not speaking for a second to get my thoughts in order.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'm kind of running out of time, guys.
Do you mind if I ask your thoughts on something?
Yeah, what's up?
Oh, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
So, did you happen to watch Destiny on the whatever podcast about this topic, the abortion topic?
I have no idea what you're talking about. There's been so many Destiny talks about abortion or whatever. Like I honestly do not know which one that you're referring to.
He was on the whatever podcast.
I don't even. I'm not even familiar with the whatever podcast.
Against the two pro-lifers, the women.
Oh yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
Okay, so I feel like
bits of it. I mean, it was basically like two women making passive aggressive, like snide comments to Destiny, and Destiny just saying the same thing that he's always, or the similar sort of thing he's been saying before. Like,
yeah,
it's kind of boring.
Okay, so Destiny made it clear that his stance that there's no consciousness in as soon as the women's concede, and then the host asked them does that mean it's okay for women to smoke or drink at early stage of pregnancy if they weren't going to get an abortion? And Destiny replied, no, because you're causing harm to a future individual. And then he responded like a gotcha. I just want to know maybe your thoughts on that.
No, I don't. No. I agree with Destiny there. He's absolutely right. I mean, just because we don't value people until they reach sentience, it doesn't mean that we don't have a concept of people who may be sentient in the future, and whether we want a future that's good for them or not. Just like
I agree too.
Yeah, I mean, and there's no inconsistency there.
Yeah, especially if the woman's not planning on getting an abortion, especially. But I feel like they're trying to make it a point like conscience doesn't matter at early stages or something.
No, I don't know. Look, if you're asking me what the two women on that podcast, the point they were trying to make, your guess is probably as good as mine.
All right, I thought I asked, and if it doesn't make sense what I'm saying out loud, it's only because it makes sense in my head. So I apologize if I'm speaking gibberish.
No, it just the point is just that, even if you only begin to value beings once they reach sentience, you valuing a good life for beings that will reach sentience is not inconsistent with that. And you setting a world up which whatever beings will reach sentience will be happy is also not inconsistent with that.
Right.
A very quick question for you, Avi.
Thanks, Avi. I really admire your work, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
So I'm just wondering what you suspect when people think of someone that identifies as pro-life. Do you think that they interpret that to mean someone who has a problem with abortion at any point or like after sentience? Because personally don't think most people interpret it that way.
No, I don't think either of those really capture pro-life.
Neither one?
No, I think pro-life is like a cluster of different views. They some of them are one or the other, like around a certain like gestational age usually, or with certain exceptions. But I think what pro-life really is trying to convey, and this is the difference between my view and the person I was talking to before, I think terms like pro-life and pro-choice are trying to convey a cluster of values that are the main sort of things people care about that form their view on abortion. So, like, for example, pro-life, you'll notice the word is life is in there. Like, oh, it's a human life. Life is sacred. Life is pure. It's made in the image of God. So those sorts of values are trying to be conveyed to pro-life. And, it's not to say that, well, it has to be at the point of conception, or it has to be like a few days after the point of conception, or it has to be a week, or it has to be at the heartbeat or whatever. There's pro-life views of all of those different aspects. It's not really about, exactly where the clustering on that edge of the spectrum is. It's more about how you got to that edge of the spectrum, whether it's 6 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks or right at the point of the sperm hitting the egg. And I think what's common among most pro-life people is the underlying values that get them to that conclusion that can be described as pro-life over the majority of cases. That's what the term's really trying to convey. The term's trying to convey that there is a value for human life. Human life is sacred. Human life needs to be protected. Human life is innocent. It's precious. It's God ordained. It's made in the image of those sorts of things. That's what I think.
At the same time, they support the death penalty and.
No, I'm not saying it's. I'm not saying it. Listen, I'm not saying it's a consistent view. It need not be consistent. I'm not saying that is an inconsistency. By the way, it may or may not be. But whether the view is consistent or not is irrelevant. I'm just saying that's what the view. That's what's trying to be conveyed. Like, what's not trying to be conveyed by pro-life is, pro-life means exactly at the point of, like, the first cardiac myocyte firing electrical signal, somewhere around 6 weeks. Like, that's not what's trying to be conveyed. The things I said earlier are what's trying to be conveyed.
Yeah, that answer is totally sufficient for me, thanks.
Cool. All right, well, I gotta take off and go to sleep. So, good night, guys.